and the thanks for that, you have to also take the responsibility.
Kitchener Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to rise today in support of Bill C-60, Economic Action Plan 2013 Act No. 1, the government's bill to implement the budget. It's important when considering any budget bill to understand the circumstances to which it must respond, so I'll begin with those. First and foremost, the economic policies of this government during and after the world's worst economic recession in almost 80 years are recognized around the world as an example for others to follow. Governments alone, of course, do not create jobs or prosperity, but it's been a happy, if unintended, blessing to have been led by a Prime Minister with a strong grasp of economics through these troubled times. Keeping taxes low, time-limiting stimulus spending, focusing on long-term infrastructure and job creation investments, all the while modestly restraining program spending, have been key, sensible policies for supporting our recovery. Canadians can be grateful that time and again the Conservative government has been able to resist the high tax, high program spending demands of the opposition. Now, this was particularly challenging during the recession, during 2.5 years of opposition-controlled Parliament. But fortunately, the last election produced a strong, stable, Conservative majority government to stave off reckless tax and spend policies. As a result, Canada has led the G7 significantly in net employment gains, almost 950,000 since the recession, and in GDP growth. Just this week, Statistics Canada announced that Canada's economy grew once again in February. While Canada has fared well in global comparisons, we continue to confront significant global challenges. The Eurozone remains in recession. The United States, our major trading partner, is experiencing only very modest growth. Global competition from emerging economies is very intense. Too many Canadians are still looking for work. Fortunately, this bill addresses the challenges we face. It will strengthen the Canadian economy and increase jobs, all while supporting Canadian families and respecting taxpayer dollars. Mr. Speaker, this bill delivers on the real concerns of Canadians. One of the timely targeted measures included in this bill is the reform of the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. Now, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program was created to fill acute labour needs when Canadians are not available. And Canadians have expressed real concerns over the use of this program by some. The program was never intended to bring in temporary foreign workers to replace already employed Canadian workers. Recent events that suggest otherwise made very clear the need to reform this program to match that intent. So the reforms brought forward in this bill stem from the government's ongoing review of the program to ensure that Canadians are the first to be considered for available jobs. The bill increases the government's ability to revoke work permits and labour market opinions, enabling immediate action against employers who do not comply with the program's rules. Changes to the bill will require that employers using the Temporary Foreign Worker Program pay temporary foreign workers the prevailing wage for a job. These are common-sense changes to the program to remove unintended incentives from looking abroad for employees. The bill also introduces user fees for employers applying for foreign workers so that these costs are no longer absorbed by taxpayers. The bill does not dispute the ongoing need for temporary foreign workers to meet acute labour shortages. Rather, these reforms create incentive to hire Canadians and ensure that temporary foreign workers are a short-term solution to skill shortages. These reforms introduced to this program will ensure that Canadians are always at the front of the hiring line. To fulfill the commitments of the 2013 budget, this bill also delivers targeted tax relief. The enhancement of the adoption expense tax credit, the new first-time donors super credit for charitable donations, and the expansion of tax relief for home care services are all targeted tax relief measures to support Canadian families. Mr. Speaker, this bill also removes tariffs on imported baby clothing and sports equipment, resulting in significant savings for families. All parents know the expenses that come with raising a family, from basic necessities such as clothes and food to education and recreational activities. It adds up very fast. Through the delivery of the Family Caregiver Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, the Children's Arts Tax Credit, the average family now saves $3,200 a year in tax reductions compared to when the present government took office. Now, these tax credits deliver important savings for Canadians, but the fact is that the price of too many products needed to support their families are consistently priced higher in Canada than the same product sold in the United States. So through the removal of tariffs on imported baby clothing and sports equipment, this difference will be reduced. The bill also delivers a 2-year extension of the accelerated capital cost allowance for eligible manufacturing and processing machinery. This demonstrates that the government recognizes the importance of sectors that provide skilled jobs. The bill provides continued support for Canada's manufacturing employees, support that is especially important for my constituents in Kitchener Centre. Canada's manufacturing economy will compete in the global economy. And Mr. Speaker, you need not take my word for it. The Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association, a key, very key stakeholder in the manufacturing sector, has already come out and said this, quote, "The federal budget sends an important signal. It positions manufacturing and exporting at the heart of Canada's economic action plan by focusing on practical steps that will enhance competitiveness, productivity, innovation, and business growth. This is very good news for companies creating jobs in Canada, investing in our communities, and developing and selling world-class products and services around the world," end quote. Now, constituents in my riding of Kitchener Centre are well aware of the importance of a healthy manufacturing sector, a major economic driver in southwest Ontario. The manufacturing sector employs approximately 1.8 million Canadians across Canada. In providing tax relief for new investments of manufacturing equipment, this bill creates a favorable environment for manufacturing employees. Now, as mentioned, in addition to tax credit to support Canadian families, this bill also ensures that taxpayer dollars are respected. The bill takes steps to close tax loopholes that allow a select few to avoid paying their fair share. Mr. Speaker, this government already introduced loan rules to prevent foreign affiliates from converting otherwise taxable surplus income into the form of loans and thereby avoiding taxation. This bill also provides an information reporting regime for tax avoidance transactions, and this in turn will help the government to track down and monitor the loss of tax revenue and collect it for the rest of us. Hard-working taxpayers can be confident that this bill will ensure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes. Mr. Speaker, when everyone is paying their fair share of taxes, it keeps taxes low for Canadian families and improves incentives to invest in Canada. So I'm very pleased that the Budget Implementation Bill delivers a solid plan for creating jobs and economic growth, all while keeping taxes low and still balancing the budget by 2015. This bill is great news for my constituents in Kitchener Centre, and I invite all members of the House to put aside partisan differences to join me in supporting jobs, growth, and long-term economic prosperity. Please pass this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Bois-Salaberry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to tell my colleague opposite that if we didn't want to be partisan, we'd like to at least be able to debate this bill on which the Conservatives impose time allocation once again, reduce the number of hours of debate. We table 50 amendments to 50 different types of measures. One for the temporary foreign workers. It's been a fiasco since the beginning because it's been ill-managed. Recently, thousands of jobs were given to temporary foreign workers who were hired by the Royal Bank and paid 15% less than a Canadian. Now we're adding to that in parallel an exemption and changes. All this to tell you that this is badly put together. Can we trust this government to say, yes, okay, let's try to re-stimulate the economy, whereas things are totally ill thought out? It's all nebulous. What can my colleague tell us about that?
Kitchener Centre.
I'm very pleased to thank my colleague, for the question and to answer the question about whether Canadians can trust this government to bring us through economic difficulty, because the answer is really just so self-evident. When you look at what happened in late 2008 with a deep, steep dive around the world and global economic turmoil, and the government's speedy response to that, coming up with a budget by the end of January 2009. I know my friend wasn't here when that happened, but the stimulus program that we enacted at that time and the measures that we have built year after year in the last 3 years have brought this economy through the recession, the greatest economic turmoil in 80 years, in a fashion better than any other country around the world, and that's good reason for Canadians to continue trusting us.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
So I have a question for the member from Kitchener Centre. Having been there not that long ago, I know that small business is a very important part of the economy of his riding, and I'd like to know whether the member has been to the businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses, in his riding and described how there will be $2.3 billion taken out of their pockets in this increase in tax on dividends. Has he done that? Has he gotten the response to that move in this particular budget? And I'd love to hear what they had to say about that. Thank you.
For Kitchener Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I suppose the best thing that I can do to respond to my colleague's question, and I thank her for it, is to provide her with the reaction of the group which, in my view, most closely reflects the views of small businesses across Canada, and that is the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And this is what they had to say about the budget. The skills problem leads our top 10 list of critical barriers to Canada's competitiveness. It's showing up all across the country in every industry. We're pleased to see the government is moving to confront it and to include business directly in the solutions. Now, that's just one example of the many good things that are said across the country by small business in relation to this budget, and I could give you quotes from the Canadian Home Builders Association, the Canadian Restaurant and Food Services Association, the Canadian Building Trades Union, in fact, has said some great things about this budget. And in all respects, I think my colleague will find that small business is solidly behind the government in this budget.
Resuming debate.